Holden, Rethwell, Invictus update. I've seen Instagram posts saying the Sea of Green is headed for Carson. It's setting up to be a real nostalgic weekend by the looks of things. You've got 4 teams going. How many of those 4 do you think are capable of punching a ticket?
Man, I'm never going to count my chickens before they hatch, but I think we have 4 really solid teams. We ran through the mock a couple weekends back, and obviously the Invictus team, we all know who they are. They're kind of in a league of their own. Our Unconquerable team is really solid as well. The Unbroken team put up really good scores, and so did our Unvexed team. And so I would be super stoked to get 4 teams in that top 7. At the same time, I am realist. I'm a realist, and there's only 7 spots. And so to say that we're going to get 4 of those 7 might sound like a stretch to some folks, but I'm pretty hopeful that we can at least be fighting for 4 teams getting in that top 7 on the final event. Funny human just came in.
You're okay.
One sec, baby. Wow, that's so cool.
New shoes.
Oh yeah, new shoes. She's all stoked for our road trip coming.
When you look at that headline Invictus team, say Chandler Smith, Joshua Shama, and Lauren Fisher and Jesse Smith, when you look at those guys and you compare that to the Invictus team from last year that won, do you see similarities? Do you think they're putting out similar numbers that you would have seen from that big team last year? Are you confident on where they sit?
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, anytime you can bring in a top 10 individual games athlete, throw them in a team setting, you're not going to skip a beat, right? And not just that, but Chandler is he lives and breathes it, right? He's extremely organized, extremely dedicated to his craft. So bringing him in has helped. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
she's got her Peppa Pig book and she's ready to party. Anyways, so anytime you're bringing in an athlete of that caliber, you know that your team's going to be in really good hands. And then Lauren coming in place of Brittany, and then obviously Jesse being on the team as well in place of Devin. Jesse's been around the game forever. Lauren's been around the game forever. She gets to go back to Carson, which was kind of where she burst onto the scene a few years back as an individual. So yeah, I'm very excited about where they stack up against the rest of the field. Like I said, we hit our mock semis and we looked at times compared to some of those European teams, and the European field is really strong, and where we sit in comparison to them makes me feel very confident going into not just semis, but the rest of the season and on to Dallas as well.
You mentioned Devin there. She's obviously going individual run this year. She chose to go individual because of, I guess, a lack of confidence that she'd hold up on a team, and she didn't want to let anyone down. So this was the kind of logical move. Is she capable of making it through semifinals unscathed, do you think? Is she how's her back holding up, or how's that injury going?
Yeah, I mean, well, first thing, every day she's getting more and more healthy. So the fact that this is tiny human, future Invictus athlete. But yeah, the fact that she's getting healthier every day is great. She ran through a bunch of the events and no pain. So that's my first concern as a coach, not just a coach, but a friend, right? I've known Devin since she was a teenage athlete. The first year I met her was 2017. She was a teenager, and we did our pre-games training camp out in St. Cloud before heading over to Madison. So I've known her forever. So I don't just have a coach athlete relationship with her. It's a friendship too, right? And so my first concern is making sure that she's healthy. So the fact that she was able to run through all the events, no pain, that's a huge win in and of itself. To add to that, she is a total gamer. She's one of those people where, and I would tell this to her face as well. Like sometimes when I see her train, I'm like, what is going on? but then she knows how to show up on game day. She's been doing it for so long, and she's been at such a high level for so long that she's one of those people that can flip a switch. Now, to see if that can happen in the individual field is going to be, a different story. When you've got 3 teammates that you can rely on, it's a little bit easier to be able to do that. But that's not to take away from the fact that she's been training well and everything there, right? I think she would agree that she hasn't had an ideal build up to being able to make an individual debut, but that's not anyone's fault. That's just the circumstances of having to train smart and work around her injury so that, she is able to at least go out and compete.
Danny Spiegel then obviously hoping to return to the CrossFit Games. Has there been changes made to what she's been doing, say, this offseason compared to last offseason? She obviously fell short last year. Has there been any changes made to her programming or how she's training, or is it just kind of more of the same and expecting a better performance on game day?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned last time her and Sam Dancer have been training together a lot. Obviously, he's trying to make a splash as the oldest male to ever qualify in the open division. So they've been training together a ton, and I kid you not, Sam Dancer turned her into a runner. Like she enjoys running now. Like they go out, they do their beach runs, 3, maybe 4 days a week. And it's been awesome to see that he's been able to bring that, improve that aspect. Cause we all know how strong she is, right? She's arguably the strongest female on that side of the coin, right? And she's a good gymnast, and I think she would admit that her biggest downfall has been some of those higher volume running events and endurance events and things like that. And I think that I think she can go out and surprise some people this weekend.
With Danny and Devin and Sam, obviously we kind of saw last week in Europe with the layout of events and the way that they're structured, the one event on the Friday, half the points available on a Sunday, is part of what's going to be important for those guys, the kind of maturity and the experience they have of not panicking if they're not in the top, say, 20 after the first workout, or not panicking if they're not where they need to be even by the end of Saturday, because there's still so many points on the table.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, they're all seasoned athletes, right? They all know that there's 6 events with 100 points to grab for each of the events, right? And if you have one rough event, you can come back from it, right? And I know that they know that there's going to be events that they're going to be able to hit, a home run on, and should, if they capitalize, and do what they did in training. So yeah, I mean, it is a different format than what we've seen in the past, but like I said, and like you said, they're seasoned veterans, right? And I think the biggest thing is staying calm, cool, and collected all the time, and making sure that you don't hit the panic button if you have one bad event, right? Now, we saw in Europe 2 bad events that can kind of sink you. So if you let, from a mental aspect, that first event creep into the next one, then that's where you'll start to see some problems. So biggest thing for them is just making sure that they run their race, and if they do what they did in training, then they're going to be stoked with the results.
Thank you. I commend your multitasking. If that was me,
yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I didn't expect them to be back.
Keifer, Lammi, and Underdogs athletics update. We'll start with North America West. Obviously, some personal vested interest there. So Kyra is taking on individual semifinals. We kind of talked about her around quarterfinals, the improvements that she's made. What's her kind of vibe heading into this weekend? Is she confident, or is it like a swing and see what happens kind of week?
No, I think she's really confident. For her, even when she went team, the idea was to go team to gain more experience and then do some off-season competing so that she would be prepared for this year to make a run for the games. And so I think more than anything, it's almost a bit of relief that the time is finally coming. And so I know that she feels confident. She's as prepared as she could be. She's excited about the tests. So we'll see what happens. We're definitely looking to make a run for it.
Are there any workouts that you're concerned about there, or do you think that even ones that might not necessarily be a strength, she can still kind of keep her head above water in?
I think with all the athletes, I have a conversation about the workouts that are ones that we can really take a big swing at or that can be a top finish, and ones that are more of, we call them like events to manage, right? We don't really say like a bad workout, but she certainly has one or two events that are more about managing them, managing expectations, not getting caught up in a race that you can't necessarily keep up with. And I think the nice thing about being week 2 is that we've already been able to see scores from qualifying athletes, and not just scores, but seeing placements and seeing like, wow, somebody came in 7th and, their finishes, they had finishes in the 20s or even finishes in the 30s in some cases. And so I think a lot of athletes get carried away thinking that in order to finish in 7th, you have to take all 7th place or better finishes. And that's not the case at all. And so just being able to look at the weekend as a full test and no single event as being more important than the others is a really nice way to settle nerves going into an event, and knowing that all you can manage is doing your best in every single workout and just waiting to see how the chips fall at the end.
Alex Gazan is there too, coming off the back of a huge season last year. She had some kind of injury problems during the off season. Is she firing on all cylinders, or is she just kind of heading that way and just get through semifinals is the aim?
No, I think she's firing on all cylinders right now. She wasn't totally healthy going through quarterfinals prep, but I think that, collectively between her, Justin, myself, everybody, we knew that it was better to feel that way then than to feel that way going into semifinals or going into the games. And so, her mindset this year compared to last year is so much different. It's really exciting, having won semis last year, finished 5th at the games. I think her level of confidence and belief is much higher. And we see hopefully a much more aggressive competitor in a way that I think is going to be really fun to see on the floor.
With someone like her, would it have an effect, do you think, if she didn't win semifinals this year, having won it last year and had such a good season at the games?
No, I think between, Justin working with Chris Hinshaw and her own understanding of herself as an athlete and everything, they know that the goal has nothing to do with semifinals aside from the fact that qualifying is important, and everything to do with a long-term perspective on what she needs to do to get herself onto the podium at the games. And so while I think that she will be fit and in the running to win semifinals, I think if she weren't to, it wouldn't bug her or Justin or anybody on our team one bit, because we know that, the end goal is being on the podium and hopefully at the top of the podium at some point. And there are things that you train for in that are just different than what we test at semifinals.
Kendall Gilmore, then tell me a bit about her. Is this her first semifinals bout? So is this like a dipping the toe in the water and seeing what the big dogs do, basically?
Yeah, Kendall's 17, so she's still competing in the teen division. She actually tied to win the Open and just qualified for the teen games. And so, we talked about this season that we thought she had a legitimate chance to make the adult semifinals as well. And having done that now, it's just an opportunity to gain experience almost before she's ready for it, in a way where, we can go in, compete really freely, know that she'll have a couple events she can do well in, a few that, she's going to have to manage more than others. But getting that experience early is so big for an athlete like that, who's, going to finish up their teen season and then be in that awkward transition phase that we've seen so many teen athletes go through, where it takes a couple of years to really bring up those skills. So the earlier we can get that experience, I think the better it is for her long term, the better it is for managing expectations of, oh, I was top dog in the teen division and now I'm at the bottom of the totem pole in the adult division, which can be really challenging mentally for them.
Oceania then, so Ricky Gerard, I'm hoping he hasn't been hit by a car or anything in the last week. He's or walked into a pothole or something. So you got him, you got Bailey Martin, who had a phenomenal season last year, really announced himself onto the elite stage, and Zane Healy as well. Are those three guys all feeling good, all feeling confident? And obviously they've got the bonus of having more spots, I guess. That probably helps, does it?
Yeah, I think, maybe for somebody like Ricky and Bailey, having a fourth buffer spot gives them a little bit of room for, if they have a slip up on an event. But honestly, I think each of those guys, and this is one of the best changes in Bailey's mindset this year from last year, is every one of those guys thinks that they're there to win that event, which I think is really fun. And between them and Jay, I think there's going to be a really exciting 3-horse race. I think Zane's going to be right in the mix for that fourth spot with a group of other guys that are really talented athletes. And so, from that end, Ricky, as much as anybody, is probably still has his sights set on the games and coming back and trying to reach the top of the podium. But, that men's side is going to be a really, really fun battle overall.
On the women's side, then you've got, multiple athletes there. Caitlin Van Ziel, obviously she had her surgery, back from that, all good, firing on all cylinders. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Caitlin's good. She's excited. I think for her and Gracie Walton both, last year was almost having a taste of almost qualifying and feeling that slip through their hands, almost literally on the rope climb event. And so they're both coming back very hungry for this season. I know that they both had really good preps. They're excited for these workouts. And I think that, the women's side, though it doesn't necessarily have the same star power as the men's side on paper, because they don't have, those perennial games guys. It's going to be a really fun race with them, with Maddie, with some of the younger up and coming girls, including Julia Hannaford, who's one of ours, that I think that, that side, though you may have people that you see as front runners on paper, there's going to be a lot of people that win events and take points from them that people aren't expecting. And so I think it's going to be an exciting race. I think Gracie and Caitlin are both as prepared as they've ever been. And, the hope is to be able to get 3 women to the CrossFit Games from Underdogs.